Yeah, hello and welcome. This is Matthias from mamoworld.com, and this is the fourth part of our tutorial series about automation blocks for After Effects, where I explain to you how you write your own tools with automation blocks. And we are developing here a tool in this series to create a new project and do all kinds of things you need to do when you start a new project, like creating new folders, importing footage, things like this. And importing footage is exactly what we do in this episode here. So you can see I start with an empty script here in automation blocks for now, because I first want to just show you the individual blocks for importing footage, and later we are going to integrate those into the script that we developed in the last episodes. So let's start. In the app and project category, you find blocks to import new footage into your project. There is a sync folder which can import an entire folder, and this here is an import file block which just imports an individual file. And there are some differences between the two, and I want to start with the simple one to just import a single file. This is very easy to use. You can just click here to pick a file that you want to import. Then you have here the full file path of this file, and of course you can specify a file in any other way you want. And here you specify a project bin, so if you keep it empty, it will import it in the root folder of the project. We want it in the footage folder, so we select footage and click here, and now it loads this text in here. By the way, a little detail, you can see it writes /footage, and this says the footage folder in the root bin, that is the subfolder of the project root. Yeah. So if you would just write it like this without the slash, it would say put it in a footage folder, and if there is no footage folder in the root, search if you find a footage folder somewhere else. So it would even find it if it's inside this precoms folder. But we want it to be only put in a footage folder in the root, so we keep it like this. Then you've got some more options. You can import your files as footage, comp, or as cropped layers, and you can import images as a sequence or as an individual image. These are exactly the same options that you also have when you do here a simple import file. Yeah, exactly the same. And you've got the avoid duplicates option, and this is pretty nice. Let's run the script for now. You can see it imported my footage file into the footage folder. But if I run it a second time, it's not importing it a second time. It is noticing, oh, there exists already a project item with that name in that footage bin here, and so it's not doing it again. If I disable this checkbox and run the script, you can see I get a second instance of it, which I am going to delete now. Very handy. The last thing of this block that we didn't discuss yet is this as project item var thing. This is this block is creating a variable for you, and it's storing the footage item it imported here in this variable. And this is very useful because then you can do other things with it later. So you find the variable here. It says project item var. Yeah? And if you don't like this name, you can actually rename it. You can say rename variable and give it the name my imported clip, for example. Now you can see this updated to my imported clip, and now I can do something with it, like for example inserting it here in my currently active composition. And I do this as follows. I want to insert it as a new layer, so the block for this I find an AE layer, and here you've got the create new layer block. So create new layer, it again says as my layer, so similar as it here says as my imported clip, it says as my layer, which means this block will create yet another variable where it stores the layer in case you want to do something with the layer later, like moving it to a different location, changing its name, whatever you want. And here give a name, and here you need to provide the footage item. Okay, and of course we could just click here, and then it loads this path. It says use the footage item in the bin footage with this strange name here, but we could do it more generic and just say use this one stored in the variable. Yeah? So this means whatever you imported with this block, it's stored in this variable, and now you can use this here in the next step. This is the idea of this variable here, that whenever you want to do something later with it, you can just use it here. And this is particularly useful if you don't have hard-coded file paths, but if this here is, for example, something that you would let the user pick. So you could just take here an open file dialog, drag it here, yeah, and now this tool would run, it asks me which file do you want me to import. Let's take this New York clip here, for example. And now you can see it imported the clip here and inserted it also here in the composition. Okay, this is importing a single file, but what we actually want to do is importing an entire folder of footage. And to do this, what you want to use is in the app and project category here, the sync folder block. So here you can now choose an entire folder. Let's choose here this Africa Scenics HD folder, for example. And we want to import it again in the footage bin. And now if we run the script, it inserts everything from this folder into this project bin. And you can see it actually didn't add this one here, yeah, because this one had been added before. We had it in the folder already, and it again noticed it was already there, so I don't need to import it. Therefore, it's called sync. Yeah, it checks what is already there, and if something is already there, it doesn't import it a second time. You can also check this option here to say delete other items. And if you do this, for example, remember that this New York clip here was from a different folder. If we run it now, a second time, you can see it gets deleted because it was in a different folder and not in this folder of our hard drive. It gets very interesting if you also choose subfolders. Let me choose this entire Artbeats folder here with all these three subfolders, African Scenics, New York, and Freefall, as the thing we want to sync. And if we run the tool now, you can see it imported the footage of all these three subfolders here, and the entire folder structure is preserved. You could also say you want to exclude the subfolders, which is not importing anything from subfolders at all, or you want to flatten it. If you do this, you can see that now the contents of all these three folders has been directly imported into the footage folder without creating any subfolders. So you have full control of how actually you want to import it. One important difference between the sync folder and the block to import an individual file is that this block here does not create any variables to bind those footage elements to. Yeah. So if you would want to access those footage elements later to do something with them, you need to go here to the project items category, and here you can like iterate, for example, over all project items of a particular project bin here, or you can get a list of those and then continue working with those, but it's not creating any variables for you. Okay, what we want to do now is to integrate this into the script we created in the last episode. And one handy thing I want to show you is if you want to bring some code, and now it's just an individual block, so it's a bit boring, but this also works for bigger combination of these blocks. If you want to bring something from one script to another one, you can just take it and put it in your backpack. So now I've got it stored here in my backpack, and if I now open the script from our last class, which is this one, I can simply open my backpack and take it out of here. Okay. Remember last time we had this logic that we only copy the files from our camera to our project folder if the camera is currently connected to the computer, so if this folder here exists, and only in that case we also want to then sync this particular folder where we copied the files to our project. So I drag it in this if condition here such that the syncing only happens if we copied the file and not in case that there was nothing to copy. Okay, so which folder do we want to sync? Well, exactly this one here. So the one where we copied our files. And where do we want it to go? Here in the footage folder. We don't want to flatten, but we want to include the subfolders. And since we are importing a folder of individual images, we make sure that we don't have image sequences checked here. Okay, now let's see how our tool is working. We run it and say project of class 4. It says could not copy any footage, camera is not connected. So let me actually quickly connect my camera and run this tool again and say class 4 test 2. And now it created this new project, and in the footage folder, let me check, we've got all the images that we wanted to import. One last tip, if you like this idea of syncing folders, but don't want it to be part of your startup script, but want it as an individual tool, we have already in our examples here under Project Footage Synced Folders, we've got already a collection of scripts here for exactly this job. If you click on any of these sync folder tools here and then click on the help button, you find a detailed description how this ready-to-use tool is actually working. Okay, that's it for this episode. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at how to create a composition with automation blocks and also how to add guides to a composition. I hope you enjoyed this class, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next one.